My name is Emily, and I'm 29. I was in a crowded airport, my suitcase packed for a business trip that could have changed everything. My startup was on the line, and I was ready to fight for it. Then my phone buzzed. It was Mom sobbing, barely getting the words out. Grandpa was hurt, maybe dying. My heart sank. I saw his kind eyes, our fishing trips, his stories. I canceled my flight, fear clawing at me. But why did Mom's voice sound so strange? Have you ever dropped everything for family? Hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Let's dive into this together. The plane touched down in Columbus, and I was already unraveling. My hands shook as I grabbed my rental car keys, the image of Grandpa hooked to machines burning in my mind. I sped toward the hospital, weaving through traffic, my phone on speaker as I tried Mom again. No answer. Just her voicemail, cheery and wrong for the moment. I gripped the steering wheel, telling myself she was just too distraught to pick up. The hospital loomed ahead, a gray block under a cloudy sky. I parked, crooked, barely locking the car before running inside. The lobby smelled of antiseptic and coffee. Nurses bustled behind a desk, their voices a low hum. I approached, breathless, my voice cracking, as I asked for Grandpa's room. The nurse, a woman with kind eyes and a name tag reading Sarah, frowned at her computer. She typed, then typed again, her brow furrowing. My stomach twisted. "I'm sorry, honey," she said, looking up. "There's no one here by that name." "Are you sure you've got the right hospital?" I froze. My pulse thundered in my ears. "No, that's impossible," I said, my voice louder than I meant. "My mom called me. She said he was in an accident, that he's critical." I fumbled for my phone, scrolling to Mom's call log, as if it could prove something. Sarah's expression softened, but she shook her head. "Let me check again. What's his full name?" I gave it, spelling out every letter, my hands clammy. She clicked through screens, then called a colleague over. They whispered, glancing at me. "Nothing," Sarah said finally. "No record of him in the ER, ICU, or anywhere." The room spun. I leaned against the counter, my legs weak. Relief flickered. Maybe he wasn't hurt after all, but it was drowned by confusion. Why would Mom say he was dying? I dialed her again, my fingers trembling. This time, she picked up. "Emily, where are you?" Her voice was shaky, but not like before. It was tight, almost annoyed. "I'm at the hospital," I said, my words sharp. "Where's Grandpa?" "They say he's not here." Silence stretched too long. "Oh, honey, I'm at home," she said, her tone shifting to something softer, forced. "Come to the house. We'll talk." I stood there, the phone pressed to my ear, my mind racing. Home? Why wasn't she here, crying at Grandpa's bedside? The nurse watched me, her eyes full of pity. I mumbled a thank you and stumbled outside, the cold air hitting my face. The drive to Mom's was a blur, my thoughts a tangle of fear and doubt. Had I misunderstood? Was this some cruel mix-up? But her voice on that first call, the sobs, the urgency, it had felt so real. I pulled into the familiar driveway, the house looking smaller than I remembered, its paint peeling at the edges. The porch light glowed, but it didn't feel welcoming. I knocked, my heart pounding. Mom opened the door, her face pale, her eyes red but dry. "Emily?" she said, pulling me into a hug that felt too tight, too quick. "You didn't have to come all this way." Her words were wrong, like she was scolding me for caring. I stepped back, searching her face. "Mom, you said Grandpa was hurt. You were crying. I canceled everything. She looked away, fussing with a dish towel in her hands. I might have overreacted, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He had a little fall, that's all. He's fine now. A fall. My chest tightened. I glanced past her into the living room, and there was Grandpa sitting in his old recliner, a mug of coffee in his hand. He looked up, startled, his face breaking into a smile. Emily, what are you doing here, kiddo? His voice was warm, steady, not the voice of a man who'd been at death's door. I stood rooted, my bag slipping from my shoulder. He was fine. Perfectly fine. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I turned to Mom, my voice low. You lied to me. She flinched but didn't answer, her eyes darting to the floor. Somewhere in the house, a door creaked, and I heard Ethan's voice, low and tense, talking to someone. My brother, who hadn't called me in months. What was going on here? I pushed past Mom, my shoes squeaking on the hardwood floor, and headed toward the sound of Ethan's voice. My stomach churned a mix of anger and dread. The living room was dim, the old lamp casting shadows on the faded wallpaper. Grandpa set his mug down, his smile fading as he sensed the tension. Everything okay? He asked, his voice softer now, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. My focus was on the hallway where Ethan stood, his phone pressed to his ear, his back to me. He was muttering his words, clipped something about a deadline. Ethan, I called sharper than I meant. He turned, startled, and ended his call abruptly. His eyes flicked to Mom, then back to me, and I saw it, guilt, plain as day. My brother, who used to sneak me extra cookies when we were kids, now looked like a stranger. What's going on? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He shoved his hands in his pockets, shrugging. Nothing. Just business. Why are you so worked up? I took a step closer, my fists clenching. Business. Mom calls me crying, saying Grandpa's dying, and I find him drinking coffee like it's any other Tuesday. You're here acting shady, and nobody's explaining anything. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Mom hovered behind me, wringing her hands. Emily, let's sit down, she said, her voice pleading. We can talk this out. But I wasn't ready to sit. I wasn't ready to be calm. I needed answers. I glanced at Grandpa, hoping he'd step in, be the voice of reason like he always was. But he just looked at his hands, his new watch glinting under the lamp. It was gaudy gold, nothing like the simple leather band he'd worn for years. My chest tightened. Where'd you get that watch, Grandpa? I asked, my voice low. He blinked, caught off guard, and mumbled something about a gift. A gift? From who? My mind raced, piecing together fragments that didn't fit. Ethan broke the silence, his tone defensive. You're making a big deal out of nothing, Em. Mom got scared, that's all. You didn't have to drop your fancy life to come here. His words stung like I was the one who'd done something wrong. We'd been close once, sharing late-night talks about our dreams, mine to build a company, his to open a gym. But he'd drifted away. Calls, unanswered visits, rare. Now he was standing here dismissing me. I turned to Mom, my voice shaking. You don't get to scare me like that and call it nothing. I missed a deal, Mom. A deal that could have set me up for years. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't speak. The silence was deafening, broken only by the tick of the kitchen clock. I noticed her purse on the counter, sleek and expensive, not the worn canvas bag she'd carried forever. My throat tightened. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Clara. Call me, it's about family stuff. I'm sorry. My cousin Clara, who'd always been on the sidelines of our family drama, never one to stir the pot. Her message sent a chill through me. I looked at Ethan, then Mom, then Grandpa, their faces a mix of avoidance and unease. "What aren't you telling me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nobody answered, but the air felt heavier, like a storm was about to break. I grabbed my keys, my heart pounding. I needed to know what Clara knew, and I needed to know now. I stormed out of Mom's house, the screen door slamming behind me. My keys jangled in my hand as I slid into the rental car, Clara's text burning in my mind. The night air was thick, the kind of humid that clings to your skin. I dialed Clara, my fingers trembling, but it went straight to voicemail. "Clara, it's me," I said, my voice tight. "What's going on? Call me back." I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, my heart racing. The silence in the car felt suffocating, like the truth was just out of reach. I drove to the only place I could think of, my old high school a few blocks away. The parking lot was empty, the football field dark except for a single floodlight flickering. I pulled over, cut the engine, and sat there, my breath shallow. Why was everyone hiding something? Mom's evasiveness, Ethan's defensiveness, Grandpa's new watch. It all felt like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. But I had to. I opened my phone again, staring at Clara's message, then noticed a missed call from Aunt Linda. My mom's sister, who hadn't spoken to me in years, not since a family fight I barely remembered. I hesitated, then called her back. "Emily." Linda answered, her voice low, urgent. "You okay?" I gripped the steering wheel, the leather creaking under my fingers. "No, I'm not," I said. "Mom lied about Grandpa being hurt, and now Ethan's acting like I'm the problem." "What's happening, Linda?" She sighed, a heavy sound that carried years of weariness. "You need to watch your back, sweetheart." I can't say much, not over the phone. Just check your accounts. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" I asked, but she cut me off. "I've said too much already. Be careful." The line went dead. My accounts. I fumbled with my phone, pulling up my banking app. The signal was weak, but I logged in, my hands sweaty. My savings account, the one I shared with Mom from years ago when I was starting my business, loaded slowly. When the balance appeared, my breath caught. $50,000 gone, withdrawn 2 days ago. My vision blurred, anger surging like a wave. That account was a safety net, something I'd forgotten about because I trusted Mom to leave it alone. I scrolled through the transactions, my heart pounding. Another withdrawal, $20,000 the day before her call. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I drove back to Mom's, the tires screeching as I pulled into the driveway. The house was quiet now, the porch light still glowing. I didn't knock this time, just walked in the door, creaking under my push. Mom was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove, the smell of onions sharp in the air. She turned, startled, her spoon clattering against the pot. "Emily, you're back," she said, her voice too bright. I didn't smile. "We need to talk," I said, holding up my phone, the banking app still open. "Why is money missing from our joint account?" Her face paled, her hands freezing mid-motion. "What are you talking about?" she asked, but her voice cracked, betraying her. I stepped closer, my voice low, controlled, though I wanted to scream. $50,000, Mom. Gone, and another 20 before that. Did you think I wouldn't notice? She opened her mouth, then closed it, her eyes darting to the hallway where Ethan had been earlier. "It's not what you think," she started, but I cut her off. "Then explain it, right now." Before she could answer, Ethan appeared, his footsteps heavy on the floor. "What's with the yelling?" He snapped, his arms crossed. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept. I turned on him, my anger spilling over. "You tell me, Ethan." Mom's lying, you're dodging, and now money's missing. What are you two doing? He scoffed, his lip curling. Always about you, isn't it, Miss Big Shot, too busy to care about us until it's your money? His words hit like a slap, cutting deeper because they weren't true. I'd sent them money checked in, even when they brushed me away. I opened my mouth to fire back, but Mom stepped between us, her hands raised. Enough, she said, her voice shaking. Emily, it was for a family meeting. I needed you here. The money. It's complicated. Complicated. My chest burned, the word echoing in my head. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the woman who'd taught me to tie my shoes, who'd cheered at my graduation. But now she was someone I didn't recognize. A family meeting doesn't cost $70,000? I said, my voice breaking. What are you hiding? She didn't answer, her eyes dropping to the floor. Ethan shifted his jaw tight, and I knew whatever this was, it was bigger than I'd feared. The kitchen felt like it was closing in the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Mom's silence was louder than any excuse she could have made. Ethan's glare burned into me, his arms still crossed like I was the one who'd crossed a line. I took a step back, my sneakers scuffing the linoleum, trying to steady my breathing. Complicated doesn't cut it, I said, my voice low but sharp. That money was mine, Mom. My safety net. You don't just take $70,000 and call it a family meeting. She flinched, her hands twisting the hem of her sweater. Emily, I was going to tell you, she said, her words tumbling out too fast. It's not what you think. We needed it for something important. Her eyes flicked to Ethan again, a silent plea, but he didn't budge. I turned to him, my heart hammering. What's something important, Ethan? You're in on this, aren't you? He snorted, shaking his head, but his eyes wouldn't meet mine. You're blowing this out of proportion, he muttered. Always so dramatic. Dramatic? The word hit me like a punch. I'd built my life from nothing, scraping by to fund my startup, and they thought I was dramatic for caring about what I'd earned. I wanted to scream, to shake them, until the truth spilled out. But my throat was tight, my chest heavy with a hurt I couldn't name. I looked at Mom, hoping for a crack in her facade, something to show she still cared. But she just stood there, her shoulders slumped, avoiding my gaze. I pushed past them, needing air, needing space. The hallway was narrow, cluttered with old family photos, me and Ethan at a county fair. Mom laughing at a barbecue, Grandpa teaching me to ride a bike. Each frame felt like a lie, mocking the trust I'd held onto. I stopped at the dining room, where papers were scattered on the table. My eyes caught a bank statement, not mine, but Mom's. I grabbed it, my hands trembling as I scanned the numbers. A withdrawal $200,000 from an account I didn't even know she had dated the same week as my missing money. My knees buckled. This wasn't just my account. This was bigger, planned, deliberate. I spun around, the paper crumpled in my fist. What is this? I demanded, holding it up as I stormed back to the kitchen. Mom's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. Ethan took a step forward, his voice sharp. Put that down, Emily. You're snooping now. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the room. Snooping? You steal from me and I'm the one in the wrong. I threw the statement on the counter, my voice rising. 200,000, Mom, on top of my 70. What are you doing with all this money? She started to cry soft sobs that should have moved me, but didn't. It's for the family, she whispered, her voice breaking. You wouldn't understand. You're always gone living your big life while we're here struggling. Struggling. I stared at her, my mind reeling. I'd sent checks for Grandpa's meds, paid for Ethan's car repairs, called every week even when they brushed me off. And now I was the outsider, the one who didn't get it. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low, almost a growl. You think you're better than us, don't you? hoarding your millions while we're scraping by. We needed that money, Emily. You weren't even using it. His words sliced through me, each one a fresh wound. I'd shared everything with him growing up, my fears, my dreams, and now he was twisting it, making me the villain. I wanted to fight back to tell him how wrong he was, but the hurt was too raw, choking me. I backed away, my eyes burning. You don't get to decide what I need, I said, my voice shaking. That was my future, Ethan. My work. And you took it. Mom reached for me, her hand trembling. Emily, please, let's talk about this. But I shook my head, the room blurring through tears I refused to let fall. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed Clara again, a single text. It's worse than you think. Meet me at your old place. My stomach twisted. Whatever this was, it was about to tear everything apart. Clara's text sent a jolt through me like ice water down my spine. I sped toward my old apartment, the streets of our small town blurring past streetlights casting long shadows. My hands gripped the wheel knuckles white as her words echoed. It's worse than you think. What could be worse than Mom and Ethan stealing from me? The betrayal already felt like a knife twisting deeper with every unanswered question. My old place was just a few miles away, a modest one-bedroom I'd kept for visits home where I stored my safe. My real safe, the one with $3 million from my startup's early days. A sick feeling grew in my gut, urging me to check it. I pulled into the parking lot, the gravel crunching under my tires. The building looked shabbier than I remembered, paint chipping off the brick, a flickering bulb above the entrance. Clara's car was there, parked crooked like she'd rushed. I spotted her on the steps, her arms wrapped around herself, her face pale under the dim light. Emily, she called, standing as I approached, her voice shaky. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying, and it hit me. Clara, who always stayed out of drama, was terrified. Tell me what I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. I fumbled with my keys, my hands unsteady as we climbed the stairs to my unit. The hallway smelled of stale cigarette smoke, the carpet worn thin. Clara followed close, her breath uneven. It's about Ethan and Aunt Karen, she said, using Mom's name in a way that felt formal, distant. They've been planning something for months. I overheard them at Grandpa's last week talking about your money. I thought they were just venting, but then I saw Ethan here. My heart stopped. Here, I pushed open my apartment door, the familiar creak of the hinges jarring in the quiet. The air inside was musty, the blinds drawn, casting slanted shadows across the sparse furniture. I flipped on the light, my eyes darting to the closet where I kept the safe hidden behind a false panel. Clara nodded, wringing her hands. 2 nights ago, I was driving by picking up takeout and saw his truck. He was carrying a bag, moving fast. I didn't think much of it until I heard about the money. I crossed the room in 3 strides, my pulse roaring in my ears. I yanked open the closet, shoving aside old coats and boxes, my fingers trembling as I pried off the panel. The safe was there, a heavy steel box, its door slightly ajar. My breath caught, a cold sweat breaking out on my neck. I dropped to my knees, pulling it open. Empty. Not a single bill, not a trace of the $3 million I'd poured my life into. The world tilted, my vision narrowing to that hollow space. No, I whispered, my voice breaking. I ran my hands along the safe's interior, as if the money might be hiding, as if this wasn't real. Clara knelt beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "Emily, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice thick. "I should have warned you. I was scared. I didn't want to believe it." I barely heard her. My mind was screaming, replaying every moment: Mom's tears, Ethan's defiance, the bank statement. They hadn't just taken $70,000, they'd taken everything. I stood, my legs shaky, and turned to Clara, my voice raw. "Why didn't you tell me?" She flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I was afraid," she admitted. "They're my family, too. I thought maybe I misheard, that it wasn't serious. But then you came home, and I saw how they were acting." Her words trailed off, but the weight of them crushed me. Even Clara, the one person I thought might be on my side, had let me down. I stumbled to the couch, my head in my hands, the room spinning. $3 million. My future, my dreams, my safety gone. I pictured Ethan sneaking in here, cracking the safe, thinking he could take what was mine, and I'd never know. And Mom, her sobs on the phone, her nervous glances she'd planned, this lied to my face. The betrayal wasn't just a cut anymore. It was a gaping wound tearing me apart. I looked up at Clara, my voice a hoarse whisper. "What else do you know?" She hesitated, her eyes wide, and I knew there was more, and it was going to break me. Clara's hesitation was a weight pressing down on the already suffocating air in my apartment. I stood, my legs unsteady, the empty safe behind me like a silent accusation. "Tell me," I said, my voice cracking raw from the shock of losing everything. Clara bit her lip, her hands twisting together. "It's not just Ethan and Aunt Karen," she said, finally, her words barely audible. "Grandpa knew. He was part of it." My heart lurched, the ground slipping out from under me. Grandpa, the man who'd taught me to bait a hook, who'd slipped me candy when Mom wasn't looking. "No, it couldn't be." I shook my head, stepping back until my hip hit the coffee table, the sharp edge biting into my skin. "You're wrong," I said, but my voice trembled, betraying me. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she pressed on. "I heard them, Emily, at his house after dinner last month. They were talking about your money, how you didn't need it all, how it could fix things for them. Grandpa said, he said it'd bring the family closer, that you'd understand eventually." Her words were a hammer shattering the last piece of trust I'd clung to. I sank onto the couch, my breath shallow, my hands gripping my knees to keep from shaking. Grandpa's face flashed in my mind, not the warm smile from my childhood, but the way he'd avoided my eyes earlier, his new watch glinting like a guilty secret. He'd known. He'd sat there, sipping coffee, letting me believe he was innocent while they robbed me blind. The betrayal was a physical ache spreading from my chest to every nerve. I wanted to scream, to tear the walls down, but all I could do was sit there, frozen, as the truth sank in. My phone buzzed on the table, a sharp vibration that startled us both. It was a call from Aunt Linda, her name lighting up the screen. I grabbed it, my hands clumsy, and answered before I could think. "Emily," she said, her voice urgent, almost breathless. "I'm at your mom's. You need to get here now. It's all coming out." My stomach twisted. "What's coming out?" I asked, but she was already talking over me. "Just come. Hurry." The line clicked dead, leaving me staring at the phone, my pulse racing. I looked at Clara, who was wiping her eyes, her face a mix of guilt and fear. "I'm coming with you," she said, standing, her voice firmer now. I didn't argue. I grabbed my keys, my mind a whirlwind of dread and rage. The drive back to Mom's was a haze, the road blurring as I pushed the speed limit, Clara silent beside me. When we pulled into the driveway, Aunt Linda's car was there parked next to Ethan's truck. The house looked the same, but it felt like a battlefield, every window hiding a new wound. We walked in the air thick with tension. Mom was at the dining table, her face buried in her hands, sobbing quietly. Ethan stood by the window, his back to us, his shoulders rigid. Grandpa sat in his recliner, his face pale, his hands clasped tightly. Linda stood in the center of the room, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing. "Tell her," Linda said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Tell her everything or I will." Mom's head snapped up, her eyes red, pleading. "Linda, don't," she whispered. But Linda ignored her. "Emily," Linda said, turning to me, her voice steady but heavy. "They took your money because Ethan's in debt, gambling debt, $500,000 owed to people who don't mess around. They thought your $3 million would cover it, make it all go away." My knees buckled, and I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. Gambling. Ethan, my brother, who'd once promised to have my back forever, had gambled away his life and then stolen mine to fix it. I looked at him, waiting for him to deny it, to say it was a mistake. But he didn't. He turned his face hard and spat. "You were never here, Emily. You left us to rot while you played tycoon. What was I supposed to do?" His words were venom, each one sinking deeper, poisoning what little was left of me. I looked at Mom, at Grandpa, their silence confirming everything. They'd all known, all agreed to this betrayal, thinking they could justify it. The room spun my chest so tight I could barely breathe. I wanted to run, to disappear, but I was trapped, drowning in the wreckage of my family with nowhere left to go. The dining room was a suffocating cage, the weight of Ethan's words still crushing me. I stood there, gripping the chair, my family's silence louder than their excuses. Mom's sobs, Grandpa's bowed head, Ethan's defiance. It was too much. I couldn't breathe. I turned and walked out, Clara's footsteps trailing me, the front door slamming shut behind us. The night air hit my face cool and sharp, but it didn't clear the fog in my head. I got in the car, Clara sliding in beside me, her eyes wide with worry. "Emily, where are we going?" she asked, her voice soft. I didn't answer right away. My hands shook as I started the engine, the headlights cutting through the darkness. "Somewhere I can think," I said, finally pulling out of the driveway. I drove without a plan, the town's familiar streets passing in a blur past the diner, where Mom used to take us for milkshakes, past the park where Ethan and I played tag. Every memory felt tainted now, like they'd been plotting this betrayal all along. But something shifted inside me, a spark beneath the pain. I was done being their victim. I pulled into a coffee shop, one of the few places open late, its neon sign buzzing softly. The place was nearly empty, just a barista wiping down counters and a couple in the corner. Clara and I sat in a booth, the vinyl seats creaking under us. I ordered a black coffee, needing something to ground me, and stared at the table, my mind racing. "I can't let them get away with this," I said, my voice low but steady. Clara nodded, her hands wrapped around her mug. "I know. I'll help whatever you need. I owe you that." Her words stirred something, gratitude maybe, but also resolve. I pulled out my phone and called Rachel, my lawyer friend from college, who'd always had a knack for cutting through chaos. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm but alert despite the late hour. "Emily, you okay?" I took a breath, the words spilling out. "No. My family stole $3 million from my safe, plus $70,000 from a joint account. Ethan's got gambling debts, and Mom and Grandpa helped cover it up. I need to know my options." Rachel didn't hesitate. Meet me at my office tomorrow 9 sharp. Bring any evidence you have, bank statements, texts, anything. We'll freeze their accounts and start a paper trail. Her confidence was a lifeline pulling me back from the edge. I hung up my hands, still trembling, but with purpose now. Clara reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. "I'm so sorry I didn't speak up sooner," she said, her voice thick. I was scared of losing them, but I'm here now. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the cousin who'd once braided my hair at sleepovers, who'd cried with me when my first business pitch failed. "Why now?" I asked, not accusing, just needing to understand. She sighed, her eyes dropping to her coffee. "Because I saw what they did to you tonight. The way Ethan talked like you were nothing. It woke me up. I've been hiding from their mess too long." Her honesty hit me hard, not because it fixed anything, but because it meant I wasn't alone. I squeezed her hand, a silent thank you, and pulled out my notebook. I started jotting down everything: dates of withdrawals, Mom's new purse, Ethan's truck at my apartment, Grandpa's watch. Each detail was a brick building, a case building my strength. Rachel's words echoed. Paper trail. I opened my banking app, screenshotting every transaction, my fingers moving faster now. "We need to talk to Ethan," I said, looking at Clara. "Not to fight, but to give him a chance to come clean. If he doesn't, I'm going to the police." Clara's eyes widened, but she nodded. "He's at Mom's tonight. We could go back." I shook my head. "Not there. Somewhere neutral. The park tomorrow morning." I texted Ethan. "Meet me at Willow Park 8 a.m. We need to talk. No excuses." My heart pounded as I hit send, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was fire burning away the hurt, leaving only the need to take back what was mine. The coffee shop's hum faded as I stared at my phone, Ethan's lack of reply glaring back at me. Clara sipped her tea, her eyes darting between me and the screen. I set the phone down, my fingers steady now, and opened my laptop. "If he won't talk, I'm not waiting," I said, my voice calm but firm. I logged into my cloud drive, pulling up old emails from when I'd set up the safe. There was a receipt for a decoy safe, a cheap one I'd bought as a precaution, and a separate account I'd hidden where the real $3 million was stashed. My heart skipped. They'd broken into the wrong one. A laugh escaped me, sharp and brittle, startling Clara. "They didn't get it," I said, my voice low. "The real money's safe." Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope crossing her face. "You're kidding." I shook my head, the realization sinking in. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was leverage, a secret they didn't know I had. I screenshot the account details, emailing them to Rachel with a note. "This is the real funds. Protect it." My fingers moved with purpose, each click a step toward reclaiming control. I pulled up a local private investigator's website, one Rachel had mentioned once. His name was Victor, a retired cop with a reputation for discretion. I filled out his contact form detailing Ethan's debts, the bank statements, and Mom's forged signatures. My words were a flood, precise, each one carving out a piece of the chaos, shaping it into something I could fight. The barista called last orders, and we stepped into the cool night. Clara hugged me, her arms tight. "You're stronger than I ever was," she said, her voice thick. I pulled back and nodded, her words like a spark igniting something. "You're here now," I said. "That's enough." She nodded and we parted ways, her taillights fading as I drove to a motel. I couldn't face Mom's house again, not yet. The motel room was small, the bed creaking under my weight, as I sat, my phone buzzing with a new text from Ethan. "Fine. Park tomorrow." My stomach tightened, but I didn't eat it reply. "I'm going to," was ready for a meeting at the park. Morning came too fast, the sky a pale gray as I parked at Willow Park. The air smelled of damp grass, the swings creaking in the breeze. I was ready for Ethan. He sat on a bench, his hoodie pulled tight, eyes scanning the horizon. I walked over my boots crunching gravel, his heart steady. "You came here," I said, stopping a few feet away. Ethan looked up, his face, haggard dark circles under his eyes. "I'm here," he said. His voice flat, but I caught the tremor in it. I sat on the bench, keeping space between us, my hands clasped to hide their shake. "The truth," I said. "You took my money. Mom helped. Grandpa knew." "Tell them why, Ethan. No lies." He stared at the ground, his jaw tight. "You wouldn't get it," he muttered. I leaned forward, my voice low, unwavering. "Try me. Or I go to the police today." His head snapped up, eyes flashing with panic, then something else, shame. "I messed up," he said, his voice breaking. "Gambling debt. I owed people. Bad people. Mom thought, we thought your money could fix it." His confession hit like a wave, but I didn't flinch. I'd expected it, but hearing it from him, seeing the brother I'd loved reduced to this hurt in a way I hadn't prepared for. "You could have asked me," I said, my voice quiet but sharp. "I'd have helped. But you stole from me, Ethan. You broke us." He looked away, his hands balling into fists. "I didn't want to drag you into it," he said, but the excuse felt hollow, a lie he didn't even believe. I stood, my shadow falling over him. "I'm filing a complaint," I said, my voice steady. "You, Mom, whoever else was in on it. But I'm giving you one chance to make it right. Come clean, pay it back, or face the consequences." He didn't respond. His head bowed, and I turned to walk away. At the edge of the park, I stopped, looking back. Ethan hadn't moved, a lone figure against the gray dawn. I didn't feel triumph, just a quiet resolve, a strength I hadn't known I had. I slipped my hand into my pocket, touching the motel key, and walked on, ready for whatever came next. I left Ethan at the park, the morning mist still clinging to the grass, his silhouette shrinking in my rearview mirror. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my chest felt hollow, like I'd left a piece of myself on that bench. I drove to Rachel's office, a small brick building downtown, its windows reflecting the pale sunrise. Inside, the air smelled of paper and coffee, grounding me as I handed over my folder of evidence, screenshots, bank statements, Clara's texts. Rachel scanned them, her glasses slipping down her nose, her expression unreadable. "This is solid," she said, setting the papers down. "I'll file a motion to freeze their accounts today. Police will want statements." "You ready for that?" I nodded, though my stomach churned. Ready wasn't the word. I was resolute, but the weight of it all pressed hard. I'd just accused my family of theft, maybe fraud. There was no going back. Rachel leaned forward, her voice soft. "This'll get messy, Emily. Families don't take kindly to this." "You sure?" I met her eyes, my voice low. "They didn't give me a choice." She nodded, jotting notes, and promised to call by noon. I stepped outside, the morning air sharp, and checked my phone. A voicemail from Mom, her voice thin, almost unrecognizable. "Emily, please come home. We need to talk. Don't do anything rash." Rash. The irony stung. I deleted it, my thumb lingering on the screen. Then a text from Clara. "Cops showed up at Aunt Karen's. Ethan's freaking out." My heart skipped, not with fear, but with a strange calm. It was happening. My actions had set something in motion, and there was no stopping it now. I drove to a nearby diner, needing somewhere to sit to process. The place was half empty, the clink of dishes and low hum of conversation oddly soothing. I slid into a booth, ordered a tea, and stared out the window at passing cars. My phone buzzed again, a local news alert. I opened it, my breath catching. Local family embroiled in theft scandal, police investigate 3M disappearance. My name wasn't mentioned, but Ethan's was alongside Mom's. The article was brief, clinical, but it felt like a spotlight exposing our family's shame to the world. I set the phone down, my hands cold. I'd wanted justice, but seeing it in print, knowing neighbors were reading it, hit differently. A waitress refilled my tea, her smile kind but curious, like she'd seen the news too. I looked away, my reflection faint in the window. I didn't recognize the woman staring back, tired eyes, set jaw, someone who'd just turned her family into headlines. My phone rang, Grandpa's number flashing. I hesitated, then answered, my voice flat. What? He cleared his throat, his voice frail. Emily, this is tearing us apart. The police? The news? Your mom's a wreck. Drop this, please. For her sake. His words were a plea, but they felt like a trap pulling at the girl who used to run to him for comfort. I closed my eyes, the diner's noise fading. You knew what they were doing? I said, my voice steady. You let them take everything. Don't ask me to fix your mess. He was silent, then a soft sigh. You're breaking her heart, he said, and hung up. I stared at the phone, my tea untouched, the steam curling into nothing. The diner felt too small, the walls closing in as the reality of what I'd started settled over me like a fog, heavy and unyielding. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, a reminder of the world moving on while mine stood still. I paid for my untouched tea, leaving a tip I barely registered, and stepped into the parking lot. The afternoon sun was harsh, casting long shadows from the rusted signpost. My phone stayed silent now. No more calls, no texts, just the news article's words looping in my head. Theft. Scandal. My family's name dragged through the mud I'd stirred up. I slid into my car, the leather seat warm against my back, and drove to Aunt Linda's house, the only place that felt safe. Her small bungalow was tucked at the edge of town, surrounded by overgrown roses. I knocked my knuckles, barely making a sound. Linda opened the door, her face softening when she saw me. Come in, honey, she said, stepping aside. The living room was cluttered with books and crochet projects, the air smelling of lavender and dust. I sank onto her couch, my body heavy like I'd been carrying this weight for years. She sat across from me, her hands folded, waiting. I saw the news. I said, my voice low, almost a whisper. It's real now. Everyone knows. She nodded, her eyes steady but sad. Small towns talk, Emily. Always have. But you did what you had to. Her words were meant to comfort, but they landed like stones. I'd wanted to justice, not this, a public unraveling, neighbors, whispering, old friends staring. I pulled my knees up, curling into myself, the couch's worn fabric scratching my skin. Linda leaned forward, her voice gentle. Your mom called me, you know. She's not eating, barely sleeping. Says she didn't mean for it to go this far. I looked up, my jaw tightening. She meant to take my money, I said, the voice thick. She meant to lie. They all did. Linda didn't argue, just sighed. Her hands smoothing her skirt. I'm not defending her, she said. But I've known Karen a long time. She's always been desperate to hold the family together, even when it meant hurting someone, usually herself. This time, it was you. Her words twisted something inside me, not forgiveness, but a raw understanding I didn't want. I stood pacing to the window, the roses outside swaying in the breeze. I don't care why she did it. I said, my voice colder than I meant. She chose Ethan's mess over me. Grandpa, too. Linda watched me, her silence heavy like she saw the crack in my armor. I turned away, my reflection faint in the glass, a stranger with tired eyes. My phone glowed on the desk, a text from Rachel. Police arrested Ethan and your mom. Bail set. Court date next week. My breath caught the words blurring. Arrested. I'd known it was coming, pushed for justice, but I didn't expect the cold air to follow. I saw my sister's eyes, her tears falling, and I felt a chill. I dropped back to the couch, my hands limp in my lap. Linda stood beside me, but I shook my head, not reaching for her. I thought I'd feel better, I said, my voice barely audible. But I don't. She nodded, her eyes glistening. Justice doesn't always feel good, honey. It just feels necessary. I stared at the floor, the rug's faded pattern blurring as her words sank in. Necessary, yes, but it left me hollow, like I'd won a fight, but lost something bigger. The room was quiet, just the tick of a clock and the distant hum of a lawnmower. I closed my eyes, the weight of their arrests settling over me, not a victory, but a heavy, unyielding truth. I couldn't escape. I left Aunt Linda's house as dusk settled, the sky bruised with purples and grays. My car hummed along the quiet roads, and I found myself heading toward the old library, a place I hadn't visited in years. It was a squat building, its stone steps worn smooth by decades of footsteps. The parking lot was empty, the streetlights just flickering on. I didn't go inside. Instead, I sat on a bench out front, the wood cool beneath me, and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. For the first time in days, I wasn't running, wasn't fighting. I was just here breathing. The air carried the faint scent of rain, and a breeze rustled the maple trees lining the street. I tilted my head back, watching their leaves sway dark against the fading light. My phone stayed in my pocket, its weight a reminder of the chaos I'd set in motion, Ethan and Mom's arrests, the news article, Grandpa's plea. But out here, with only the crickets for company, those things felt distant, like a storm that had passed. I wasn't okay, not yet, but I was starting to see a path through the wreckage. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who'd sit in this library's reading nook, devouring books about entrepreneurs dreaming of a life bigger than this town. That girl trusted, easily loved, fiercely believed family was a safe harbor. I wasn't her anymore. The betrayal had carved something new in me, not just scars, but a quiet strength, a clarity I hadn't known I needed. I pulled my jacket tighter, the evening chill creeping in, and let my mind wander to a memory, not of Mom or Ethan, but of myself, alone in my first apartment, signing the papers for my startup. I'd been terrified, but I'd done it anyway. That courage was still in me, waiting. A car passed its headlights, sweeping over the bench, and I noticed a small plaque embedded in the wood, etched with a donor's name. It read, "In memory of Grace Harper, who loved stories." I traced the letters with my finger, the metal cold and smooth. I didn't know Grace, but her name felt like a whisper, a reminder that life goes on, that stories don't end with pain. I sat back, my breath slowing, and thought about what I wanted now. Not revenge, not anymore. I wanted peace, the kind that comes from knowing who you are, even when the people you love let you down. My phone buzzed, a soft vibration against my thigh. I pulled it out, expecting Rachel or Clara, but it was a text from an old high school friend, Sarah, who'd moved away years ago. "Heard about your family. I'm so sorry. Here if you need to talk." I stared at the words, a lump forming in my throat. Sarah didn't know the whole story, but her message was a thread connecting me to a world beyond this mess. I typed a quick reply. Thanks, I'll call soon, and slipped the phone back in my pocket. The stars were starting to peek through the clouds, faint but steady, and I felt something shift, a small release, like letting go of a breath I'd been holding too long. The night deepened, the stars, now sharp, against the velvet sky. I stayed on the library bench, the chill seeping through my jacket, but I didn't mind. My breath was slow, each exhale a small surrender to the quiet. I reached into my bag, pulling out a small notebook I'd carried since my startup days, its pages filled with scribbled ideas and dreams. Flipping through, I found a list I'd written years ago, goals for my company, my life. At the bottom, in smaller script, I'd added, "Make mom proud. Keep family close." My finger lingered on those words. The ink faded, but heavy. I didn't tear the page out. Instead, I closed the notebook, tucking it away, a choice to let that old wish rest. Pride, closeness weren't things I could force. I stood stretching my stiff legs and walked to the edge of the sidewalk where a small garden patch held wilted marigolds. I knelt, brushing my fingers over their brittle petals, and felt a pang, not for what was lost, but for what I was learning to carry. Pain shapes you, but it doesn't define you. Footsteps crunched behind me, soft but deliberate. I turned to see Clara, her scarf loose around her neck, her face lit by the streetlight. "Thought I'd find you here," she said, her voice gentle. She sat beside me on the curb, our shoulders close, but not touching. "You okay?" she asked, not pushing, just there. I nodded, my eyes on the marigolds. "Getting there?" I said, my voice low, steady. I used to think family was everything. Now I'm figuring out what I'm worth without them. Clara was quiet, then reached into her pocket, pulling out a small folded paper. "Found this in my old stuff," she said, handing it to me. I unfolded it, a drawing we'd made as kids, 2 stick figures labeled "Emily and Clara, best cousins forever." Yeah. The crayon lines were smudged, but the memory was clear, summer days laughing until our sides hurt. I smiled, a real one, and handed it back. "We're still here," I said, and she nodded, her eyes bright. We sat in silence, the town asleep around us, the only sound, the rustle of leaves. I thought about my startup, the new investor, waiting for my call, the life I was building despite everything. I wasn't whole, not yet, but I was enough. Clara stood, offering her hand. "Come on," she said. "Let's get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." I took her hand, standing, and we walked to my car, the night soft around us. I glanced back at the library, its windows dark, and felt a quiet settle in my bones, a peace I hadn't known I could find. A year later, I'm in a new city, a small apartment with windows that catch the morning sun. My name is still Emily, but I feel like a different woman, one who's learned to carry her scars without letting them steer. The trial came and went. Ethan pleaded guilty, started rehab, and Mom's working to repay what she took. We don't talk much, just short texts, polite but distant. Grandpa sends letters, brief notes about his garden, and I reply, but the closeness we had is a memory tucked away like an old book. I wake early now, a habit I didn't have before. There's a coffee shop down the street, its wooden tables scratched from years of use, where I sit with my laptop rebuilding my startup. The new investor believed in me, and we're growing slower than before but steady. I sip my latte, the foam warm on my lips, and watch people pass by, strangers with their own stories, their own battles. I used to feel alone in mine, but now I see I'm part of something bigger, a world that keeps turning no matter what you lose. My days have a rhythm, mornings at the coffee shop, afternoons in meetings, evenings with a book or a walk by the river near my place. The water's calm most days, reflecting the city lights. And I've started sketching it, just pencil on paper. Nothing fancy. It's not about being good. It's about making something claiming a piece of myself that no one can take. I keep the sketches in a drawer next to a letter I wrote to myself after the trial, words I needed to hear. You are enough. Clara visits sometimes, her laugh filling my small living room. We cook together, simple things like pasta or stir-fry, and talk about her new job, my plans, anything but the past. She's different too, braver, speaking her mind in ways she never did. Last week, she brought a bottle of wine, and we sat on my balcony, the city humming below. You ever think about going back? She asked, her voice soft, not pressing. I shook my head, staring at the skyline. Not yet, I said. Maybe someday, but not like before. I've started running too, something I never thought I'd do. There's a park nearby, its paths winding through old oaks, and I go at dawn, my sneakers pounding the dirt. It's not about speed, it's about moving, feeling my lungs burn, my heart steady. Each step feels like proof I'm still here, still choosing to show up. The other runners nod as we pass a quiet acknowledgement, and I nod back, part of their rhythm even if we never speak. My apartment's walls are bare, but I've hung one thing, a small mirror by the door. Its frame, simple wood. I catch my reflection sometimes on my way out, or coming home, and I don't flinch anymore. The woman looking back has lines around her eyes, a tiredness that lingers, but there's a spark too, a quiet fire. I'm not healed, not completely, but I'm living, building, growing. The past is a shadow always there, but it doesn't block the light anymore. Sometimes I sit on my balcony at night, a blanket over my shoulders, listening to the city's hum, car horns, distant laughter, the soft clink of bottles from a bar below. It's a different kind of quiet, not the stillness of my hometown, but one that holds me without asking anything in return. I've started writing again, not business plans or evidence lists, but short essays, thoughts about trust and rebuilding. I post them online anonymously on a small blog I call Starting Again. The words are simple, raw, about losing what you thought was forever and finding something else in its place. Strangers comment, sharing their own stories, divorces, broken friendships, dreams that didn't survive. Their words remind me I'm not alone, that pain is a thread we all share, but so is hope. I saw Mom last month, a brief meeting at a neutral cafe halfway between our cities. She looked older, her hair grayer, her hands fidgeting with a napkin. We didn't hug, just nodded and sat across from each other like strangers learning to be polite. She apologized, her voice small, and I listened, not interrupting. I didn't forgive her, not out loud, but I felt the anger loosen like a knot finally giving way. I'm trying, she said, her eyes meeting mine for the first time. I nodded, sipping my tea, and when we parted, I didn't look back. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else. It's a weight you set down for yourself. I've learned about Ethan through Clara's short messages about his recovery, his new job at a warehouse. I don't reply, but I read them and I hope he's finding his way. Grandpa's letters have stopped, and I've made peace with that silence. Family isn't what I thought it was, not a fixed circle you're born into, but a choice, a garden you tend with care. Clara's in that garden, and Rachel, and even the strangers who read my blog. They're my people, not because of blood, but because of respect, the kind that doesn't demand I shrink to fit. I've learned something these past months, something I wish I'd known sooner. Trust is a house you build brick by brick, and when it burns, you don't rebuild the same way. You choose stronger materials, self-worth boundaries, the courage to walk away. Betrayal doesn't break you. It shows you what you're made of. I used to think love meant giving everything, even when it hurt. Now I know it means giving to yourself first, so you have something left to share. That's the lesson I carry, not as a weight, but as a light guiding me forward. What's the hardest truth you've had to face, and how did it change you? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone, and your stories keep me going. If this resonated, hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe share it with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for being here, for listening, for carrying your own light through the dark. Here's to healing, to starting again, wherever you are.